Hello, welcome. So happy to have you here with us today for part 4 of our Inspire Writing Art and Writing series. Today, we're going to start with a few breathing exercises on the first page of your workbook. You're going to learn a whole bunch of simple drawing exercises, but most importantly, I want you to really feel confident in leaving today with the tools to tap in to what's called a flow state. So some of you might have heard that word before, flow, but you might not necessarily understand how to tap into that or all the very many mental health benefits that being in a flow state can have for you. So that's something I really want to leave an impression on you today with. So I'm just going to grab a piece of blank paper here. If you do have blank paper, that would be great, but you can just watch me for a minute. And I'm just going to be sort of explaining this idea of a moving meditation. So I'm just using my rollerball pen here. So when I first learned how to do calligraphy, I just thought it paired really beautifully with my watercolor paintings, but I had no idea about the actual tangible benefits of doing calligraphy on my mental health and well-being. So now I'm going to write the words moving meditation in sort of this monoline calligraphy style. And I just want you to notice a few things. The first thing that I want you to notice that contributes to this becoming a little bit more of a mindfulness practice is my slow speed. And you'll also notice that I'm lifting my hand between strokes. So even just those two things, the speed at which I was writing and the concentration that it takes to lift my hands between strokes means that I'm completely kind of focused on the task at hand, which is by definition meditation. So meditation is the practice of training your mind to focus on one thing at a time. So you can see now how doing something like calligraphy specifically can help you focus, because you really only can focus on one thing at a time. And I'm telling you right now that if I would have tried to have a conversation with you while writing something like this, even 5 years ago, that would not have happened. So I am multitasking a little bit, but in essence, when you are doing calligraphy, you can really only focus on the task at hand and only focus on one thing at a time. So it allows you to be kind of fully present in the moment. And this, the effect of being fully present actually has a therapeutic effect on emotional stability and attention. And that's how calligraphy is actually a proven practice to help alleviate symptoms of anxiety. So I taught a version of this class at Cornell University last month, and some of their research indicates that regular meditation, even things like moving meditations, may increase things like brain size and gray matter, improve intelligence and creativity, strengthen your immune system, normalize blood pressure, heart rate, cholesterol, and it doesn't take years of meditation to experience those results. As I said a minute ago, the effects are immediate and long-term. So let's start with the first page of your workbook here, where we have 3 breathing exercises. And what you see here are just kind of thought starters. So you can use the boxes provided now, but the idea is that the next time you do this, you're going to fill a whole page in your journal. So let's start out by doing the first coil here. And again, you don't have to trace what I have. This is just to kind of show you. And we're going to start by moving in sort of a fast motion. We don't want to overlap our coils, but we're going to move in a sort of fast motion. And just do a few of those. And now let's add another layer by slowing it down and breathing in when we're moving up and breathing out when we're moving down. So breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, breathing out. Breathing in, and breathing out. So let's add another layer. So again, the first little bit, you're just getting warmed up. Then you start integrating that breathing exercise. And now we're going to add another layer that kind of takes us into this mindfulness space, which is that we're going to focus on a few other things. So we're going to start focusing on the sound of the nib or the tip of your writing instrument on the paper. So for me, I know you can't hear this in my studio, but it's making almost like a little scratchy sound. And I mentioned this in my last part 3, but I got the amazing opportunity to go to the Mont Blanc house in Hamburg in Germany, and we got to see how all of the writing instruments are made, and they actually have a soundproof room to test all of the nibs because the sensory experience of writing involves, more than just the feel of the pen in your hand, but it's also the sound that it makes on the paper and how smooth the ink is flowing across the page. So that's now what I want you to notice, especially, and again, I'm going to switch over to the back side of my page here so that I can continue, but especially when you're using something like a fountain pen. So I'm going to switch to my Meisterstück. This is an extra fine nib, which is one of my favorites specifically to draw with, but I also like doing these exercises because it's so smooth. And we want to work on a relatively small scale here. And I just want you to notice how the ink is flowing out of the tines of your fountain pen. So again, the goal here is that we're just trying to be really present in the moment and focus on exactly what we're doing here and not, your swirling to-do lists. Just the sound of the nib on the paper, the way the ink is flowing across the page, on your breathing. So breathing in, breathing out. And if you have some colored ink, you can also start experimenting with that, noticing even the color of the ink and how opaque this particular black ink is. And then start to focus on the concentration that it actually takes to form each coil. So we're going down, then we're looping at the bottom and coming up. And start to actually pay attention to the different shapes that you've created. Are they touching? Are they separated? Moving nice and slow. And if you're getting lost in thought while doing that's totally fine. But the idea is to almost force yourself to focus on exactly what you see in front of you, which will help limit some of those intrusive thoughts that can sometimes get the better of us. So the idea with this exercise, I love this one. Again, I would love for you after today's class to spend at least 5 minutes doing this. At least try it. I promise you, at least just try it for 5 minutes one day. And the idea is that you're going to draw the full length of your inhales. And when you get to the top, you're going to draw the full length of your exhales. So you'll end up with a page that kind of looks like a heart rate monitor almost, with taller and shorter strokes. So when you first sit down, they might actually be these really short lines, especially if you're stressed out or you're using this as a coping technique. But a couple minutes in, as your breath becomes longer and your heart rate slows down, you'll notice that your strokes are starting to get longer too. So let's try it for a moment together. So I'm going to breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out. And the idea is, we're already kind of relaxed from the first exercise that we did, which is amazing. But the idea is to continue to do this and to draw the full length of your inhales and your exhales. And as you do that, and remember, you're not tracing my lines here. This is just to kind of give you thought starters to follow your breath and draw those lines. You realize that doing things like this are almost like an antidote for the digital age and all of our constant busyness. Like putting pen to paper is the opposite of sort of that high stress, high pressure. It's taking time to slow down, which actually activates your body's relaxation response, lowers your heart rate, ultimately reducing stress. So many benefits. Okay. So again, the goal is not to create beautiful lines, beautiful shapes, but if you have taken my calligraphy classes before, then you're probably finding that there is, again, a lot of overlap in how I'm holding my pen. And if I was using a flexible nib, maybe I would start to integrate some thicker strokes on the way down. The idea is to, get yourself centered and really back on focusing on the sound of the nib, how it's flowing on the page, the rate at which you're breathing, and the ultimate goal is to lower that heart rate. So the last exercise here is a really fun one. So this is a figure 8 shape. So we're going to start in the middle. So I'll repeat that for anybody that's maybe still in the previous exercise. We're going to start in the middle of the figure 8 shape, and we're going to trace a full shape for our inhale, and then go back and trace a full shape for our exhale. So let's do that together. And if that feels like too big, maybe you're still breathing a little bit more shallow, make it smaller. And then you're going to keep, the idea is you're going to keep tracing over your lines for at least a moment or two. So we've already kind of talked through these real, tangible, life-changing effects of integrating a practice like this into your life. But the way that you can experience those benefits is by getting into flow state. I like to describe it like it's this experience of time passing without you realizing. You're completely present. You're not circling on your to-do list and having your mind run a mile a minute. Being in a flow state is kind of the opposite of burnout. It's when we let our brains rest and restore. And that's so, so, so important that we're not always on a level 10 stress, right? And I think probably a lot of us feel like we are often at a level 10 stress. So if we can bring that down even somewhat through some really simple techniques like you see on the page that we're about to work on in front of you, it's 100% worth it. So the idea here, again, is to build a little bit of muscle memory. So the first box we're going to fill in is just with that wave shape. We're going up, down, up, and I'm simply touching the outer limits of the box. That's the only rule I'm setting for myself here, is that I'm touching the outer limits of the box as I'm moving in an upward and downward motion. And maybe start to integrate that breathing exercise when you do this again. And now maybe we want to challenge ourselves a little bit more. Maybe it's feeling a little bit too easy. I'm going to switch to my flexible nib to create this sort of coil shape here. And anytime I'm moving in a downward motion, I'm going to apply pressure to the nib and get a little bit of a thicker stroke. So I'm going to go up, pressure, up, pressure. And I'm doing the same thing. I'm just touching the outer limits of my box, pressure, up. And maybe I also want the coils to touch. So I'm going to lightly graze that one there, readjusting. And again, the goal is to focus on, I can actually audibly hear the sound of my fountain pen nib, which is one of my favorite parts of doing calligraphy, is that whole sensory experience. So this exercise, very simple. It's getting into the idea of pattern making. So if you can start to practice your coils, this is a figure 8 shape. So you're just adding another sort of loop onto your calligraphy drills there. And I do want to focus for a minute just on these little patterns that I put in the boxes here. So the idea, similar to the breathing exercise, is that you actually want to fill an entire page with these. So if you grab, a blank notebook, ideally one that doesn't have lines on it, and all you're doing is making little tiny ticks, and I'm using my flexible nib because it's more fun. It gets a little bit of a bounce as I'm doing this. And the goal is not perfection whatsoever. It's repetitive movement. And this repetition is also what's going to help you tap into that flow state. If we want to make it a little bit more challenging, maybe you start to try to make them equal distance apart. Or maybe you want to try to make them all of the same length. You can imagine as you fill an entire page with something like this, you start to have to play little games with yourself to avoid losing focus. So again, we want to do an activity that's challenging, but not impossible. And the writing instruments you're using can have a big impact on that too. The next, and I think this is really fun, especially when you're doing it across a whole page of a workbook, is drawing a line right across the page. The goal is not to have the straightest line in the world. In fact, I actually think it looks pretty cool when all of your lines aren't fully straight. And the combination of doing both of these little mindfulness drills is that you can create really fun patterns. So you can see this pattern down here. It's 2 lines of coils followed by 6 lines, and then another 2 lines of coils followed by 6 lines. And it's just a really fun way to integrate two different sort of techniques, and it's also going to help build your muscle memory for getting better at things like calligraphy and drawing. So both of those are really cool. The last one that I want to show you is this one down here. So this is the pebble drawing exercise. Super simple. Again, not very many rules. The only rule is that when you draw your first pebble, and I want it to be like in a regular shape, doesn't have to be a perfect circle, your second one has to touch at least one of the edges of the first one you drew. So I have to touch at least one edge of the previous pebble. Again, they're not perfectly shaped. You might want to work across the whole page first, or you can just start anywhere. And the idea is, once you've filled in the whole box with these pebble shapes, you use your ink to fill in all the white space. So you would create your C curve. Again, watch part 1 of this series to know exactly how to do this, but I've drawn it for you just in case. And you're going to create your C curve to create your stem and your leaves. And then you're going to create a pattern, this pattern on each of the leaves, by starting at the bottom of the leaf and on either side of center, drawing a V shape. So down, up, on either side of center, starting at the bottom of the leaf shape. Really pretty effect. So the idea would be that you fill in this whole entire thing with down and up strokes in the shape of a V. Down, touching the center, up, extending to the outer part of the leaf. So I would love, if anybody here is on social media, I would love to see your final leaf exercises. You can tag me at Peak Paper Co. and at Mont Blanc, and we can see what your completed leaves look like. And obviously, bonus points if you draw your own leaf, if you've already taken part 1 of this series, but I just think it looks really cool. This number 2 exercise down here, and if you haven't finished this one yet, we can complete that maybe towards the end of today's class, because I really want to be able to show you how to do this one as well. So with the second one, again, you would be creating your C curve and then your C curves on either side to create a circular leaf. And then we're going to create a pattern inside each leaf by starting at the bottom of each leaf and creating C strokes that connect to the top and bottom on either side. So I'm going to do down strokes on either side of center in a C shape. We're touching the top and the bottom line. This one needs a little something there. So C curve touching the top and the bottom of the leaf. I love this one. Makes it look so 3D. It almost looks like little berries or something on a plant. So I'll do that again. I'm going to do down strokes, C curves, touching the center, top, and bottom on either side. Center, top, and bottom on either side. I'll do this side too. Down stroke. And again, trying to pay attention to your breathing, the ink color that you're using. Sometimes I just like to rock back and forth like this too. So I'll do that again so you can see. I'm going down, up, down, up, down, down, rocking back and forth. That one actually, it just feels really good to do. Up, down, up. And start experimenting with the pressure that you're putting on the tip of your pen too. So I feel like I'm pressing really hard. So I'm going to try to alleviate some tension in my fingers and avoid that death grip. And I'm just going to loosen my grip, roll my shoulders back, take a deep breath, and not press so hard. Down, up. And you can see even when I'm not pressing as hard, I'm getting less of that harsh, opaque effect, which is really nice. Down, up, down. I just want to finish this one because I think it looks so cool. And you can see sometimes I'm just filling in the space too. I kind of go back if there's any white space and fill that in with my C curves. In this exercise, you're simply going to, start. I like to start at the bottom, but you can start anywhere, and draw a line without ever lifting your pen off the paper. And then you start to loop and cross over your lines. And the more loops you create, the more spaces you're going to have to fill with color and drawings. So I'm just going to do a really loose example here. So I'm not lifting my pen, and I'm just loo. And because I have a box, I'm trying to sort of work within the constraints of that box. I have some, even relatively straight lines. And I'm just going to end it right there. Like, I think that looks really cool. And I'm going to switch to my flex nib, and maybe I will fill in this box here. And I'm just going to do my coil shapes. So you can fill this in with literally whatever feels like fun to you. Look back on that first flow exercises sheet that we did for some inspiration with coil shapes or little dashes or dots. You can see some examples here. Even that C curve technique that we just did on the leaves, you could do that in one of the boxes, which makes it look a little 3D, which I think is cool. And again, we're seeing progress every time we fill in a box. And you can start to really test out your drawing skills and your calligraphy skills if we've done a class together before. I'm just going to do lines on this one. I like to alternate, like if I just had a box that has some weight to it, so like there's a lot of color in the coil box I just did, so next to it, visually, I'm thinking I just want something that's maybe less bold. And so I'm just doing lines, and I'm spacing them out tighter towards the bottom and more spaced out in the middle. So again, I love to do exercises like these while I'm watching TV. I don't know if anyone can relate to this, but I actually have a hard time just watching TV without feeling like, sounds silly, but feeling a little bit guilty for doing that. And I know, like, I can watch a couple episodes of something, no problem. But if I'm in the mood to just binge watch a show every once in a while, I like to do something like this at the same time. Because not only is it just enjoyable, but it gives my eyes a little bit of a break from the screen. So like I said, when you're on a work call or something like that, this is just a really good companion. And then when you are feeling really anxious or you're really overthinking something, that's when you really want to lean on those breathing exercises that we talked about. That's what's going to help bring you back to center, especially. Ideally, you're doing all of these things without, also watching TV, because they are a bit of that antidote for the digital age. I don't know about you guys, but I'm feeling very relaxed after doing that exercise. And you can see on the bottom left, if you printed this in color, I've added some color to my shape as well. Thank you so much again for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you again. Thanks so much, everyone.